Lots of people talk about chasing their dreams, but how many actually do it? Welcome to the Pursue Your Passion podcast with Tyler Kammerman. We're going to introduce you to people who are intentionally pursuing their passion every day. Through their stories of success and their struggles, you'll gain insight into how to better begin or continue your journey. Now here's Tyler with today's guest.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Tyler Kammerman, your host on the Pursue Your Passion podcast. I'm excited to have you with me today. I am excited to have Brandon Hart on the show today. Brandon is the founder and owner of HartSmart Products, an eco-friendly 3D printing shop in Des Moines. He's a graduate of Iowa State University. Go Cyclones. And he graduated with a degree in liberal studies and a minor in biology. Prior to starting his current business, Brandon spent 20 years in the cellular and Internet of Things industry, working for such companies as Verizon Wireless, NimbeLink. All right, I should have asked. Where he established himself as a subject matter expert on the topic of integrating cellular connectivity into custom electronic devices. So I'm going to just pause right there. I'm going to come back to his bio in just a second, but there's a resounding theme that if you're listening to this show, I keep bringing on people that are smarter than me. So that last sentence right there already sets him up, as far as I'm concerned. But Brandon's hobbies used to be electronics projects, woodworking, and 3D printing. And Brandon hopes to have hobbies again someday. So I look at that bio, Brandon, and definitely the last line is the one that we have the most in common on. Somebody just asked me the other day, so, what are your hobbies? I'm like, that's cute. Yeah. Hobbies. That's actually probably this show is my hobby, but welcome to the show, Brandon. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you very much. I am very pleased to be here.
Awesome. Yes. So, Brandon was an introduction from a fantastic listener who has introduced me to some other guests as well. So there's the challenge to the rest of the listeners. If you've got somebody that inspires you, somebody that is chasing after, really pursuing a passion, I would love an introduction because I love meeting new people, and I haven't talked to somebody from the 3D printing industry on my show yet. So I love the variety as well. So again, so your intro tells us, gives us a kind of a peek behind the curtain at what you're up to. But Brandon, tell us about the passion or passions that you're going after right now.
Yeah. So I am currently working on essentially a hobby that got out of control.
I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So, I've been sort of climbing the corporate ladder for a number of years and doing another number of jobs that I was told to expect to do when I was growing up. And in the meantime, I do stuff that I actually enjoy on the side.
Right.
And some of those things kind of took over, and I started just sort of taking money to start doing some of the things so that I could continue doing it. And fast forward now, and that's basically all I do. And I no longer have any hobbies.
So, you were working. Tell me, actually, I want to go back to your bio. Subject matter expert on the topic of integrating cellular connectivity into custom electronic devices.
Yeah.
You don't have to give us the granular, but tell me about that. What's that all about?
That's not self-explanatory.
No, I mean, it probably is for somebody listening, but it's not for my communications degree turned, salesperson.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, basically think about any device that is not a cell phone, and the fact that sort of everything is communicating in the background. Your chair could communicate how long you've been sitting in it, and something is tracking that, something is using that data, all those types of things. I'm the guy responsible for helping companies figure out how to put cellular radios, LTE radios, 5G radios, whatever, into different devices and connect them to what is known as the Internet of Things, or IoT.
Okay.
So I started on the cellular side of things, then I switched to the electronics component side of things, and it's I put a lot of time, a lot of effort into establishing myself in that industry. I got a whole series of YouTube videos that I did on behalf of my last employer, NimbeLink, and I just walked away from it all.
Okay.
It felt weird to put that much time and invest that much effort into establishing myself in that industry and then just leaving it all behind to pursue my passion.
Yeah. Awesome. We're gonna come back to that.
Okay.
But so tell us about how the hobby started. How did you
Yeah.
I remember hearing about 3D printing, or I've heard about 3D printing for quite a while, but how did that hobby start for you?
Yeah. So, as you might have picked up on, I'm a bit of a nerd. And in my spare time, after I would get off of work, I would, utilize microcontrollers, Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, those types of development boards to just create fun projects. One of the projects that I spent quite a bit of time and effort on, did several different iterations of, is a dog feeder that is automated, motorized, and connected to the internet. So you could control it over the internet to feed your dog or set it up and, automate the feeding of your dog when you're on vacation or whatever the
Oh,
case might
wow.
be. And that's just one of the examples. But I'd always run into this issue where I've created this really cool system, and I've got all these sensors, I've got these motors and everything, but no way to properly enclose them, or no way to mount the servo motor where I wanted it to be, or all this kind of stuff. And so I'd use off the shelf boxes or off the shelf brackets, or use pliers to bend something into the shape that I actually wanted it to be. And it just became clear to me that what I really need / want is a way to make my own stuff. And that was, when I started dreaming about having a 3D printer. I won't give you the long story on how I justified the purchase of my first 3D printer, but I was able to do so, and got a machine and started printing stuff. And then I started just downloading and printing stuff for fun. And then I ran out of, shelf space and interest from the family for more printed stuff to sit on the shelves, and just started offering to print things for other people. Turns out I got pretty good at that, and I got a lot of recurring customers that would continue to come back to me for parts. And it just sort of took off from there.
Wow.
Yeah, more to it than that, but that's the simplified version.
Sure. So when you kind of made that switch, or and I don't want to say switch, step maybe is a better word. When you started offering your services to other people, what did that look like? Is that a website? Was that word of mouth? Both? How, what did that step look like for you?
Sure. So back in the day, in the early times of 3D printing, or at least open source 3D printing.
And how long ago are we talking here?
We're talking probably at this point about 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. About 10 years ago, I got my first printer and started printing things. There was a platform that was known as 3D Hubs at the time. They might still go by that name, but they are a very, very different company now. But it was essentially a platform that connected people who had 3D printers with people who wanted 3D printed stuff. And so at its very basic level, it was exactly what I wanted when I was trying to print things,
Right.
but I needed somebody to pay me for them. So I just jumped on that platform and started using that. And then I'd have people that would just come back to me outside of the platform because they'd already found me through the platform. And so we would just work separately. And I started kind of growing the two different audiences, the two different customer bases, the one on the platform, the one outside the platform. To the point where eventually, fast forward a couple years later, I didn't really need the platform anymore, and the platform had changed anyway, so I didn't really want to be part of it. But
Sure.
yeah, that's how it started.
Okay. Very cool. So that's kind of step one of now hobby is
Sort of
becoming
easing
a
into it a
side
little bit.
hustle, as
Yeah.
the kids like to say, right?
Right,
So we've
right.
moved from hobby to side hustle, and then and what did the next iteration look like?
Yeah. So after that, it became clear. So I was still doing it as really a hobby. It was a paid hobby, but it was still a hobby.
Sure.
If I could get enough money to justify the purchase of another spool of filament, then it was a win.
Got it. So at this point, we're kind of breaking even, maybe a little bit of profit.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then I started getting kind of serious about it and getting more traffic, more customers, enough to justify the purchase of a second printer. And then it started becoming more of a serious thing. And I started looking into my options to truly set myself up as a business. And through a bunch of employer issues that I won't get too deep into, other than to say I was not allowed to do anything outside of my employment. I had to continue to operate as a hobby until I could find an employer that was a little bit more friendly to me having my own business.
Sure.
So the very first day that I started with my new employer, NimbeLink, was also the very first day that I was officially a business. So that was how that worked.
Interesting.
There was an understanding with the new employer, with NimbeLink, that I was going to start my own business. They could not have been more supportive of that.
Cool.
So big shout out to them. They were fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was only because I joined their team and was able to be a part of their company, their organization, help them, establish themselves and find customers, et cetera, that I was also able to start my own thing. And they told me on day one, as soon as, HartSmart Products can become your full-time gig, we want you to leave. We want you to go do that. We want you to pursue your passion.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's amazing.
All right. So we'll give another shout out to NimbeLink. That's the way that's the way you inspire people to work hard, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. You got my commitment at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I've talked about that on other, because it's great if you can find your passion in your everyday work, but so many of us haven't, in the past.
Sure.
Right. And so sometimes it is just having that hobby. Even if that hobby doesn't become a side hustle or a full-time job, like passionate workers, even if that passion isn't at the 8 to 5, are going to produce better for you than someone who's just going through the motions. So
Totally
I
agree.
love that.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's, I've heard two different schools of thought, and I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Which is, do what you love and you never work a day in your life. Not totally in agreement with that.
Me either.
And then there's, never do what you love as your job, or, you'll, I forget exactly how
it'll
this
ruin
goes.
the love or something like that.
Something along those lines. And I'm not quite there either, because
right.
I followed my hobby, my love with 3D printing.
Yeah.
And I still continue to do it. I still love it.
Yeah.
So,
but it's still work.
It's still work. Yeah. It's very much work.
That's why I can't be in that first camp either.
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, I mean, no matter what you're doing, it's still work.
It's the hardest work I've ever done in my life.
I feel like I still would rather, financially, if money wasn't an issue, I might still interview people like this, but I feel like I'd probably be on a beach or climbing a mountain or just going on a hike most days.
Yeah, I'm maybe a little bit too much of a workaholic for that. If I were to say I agreed with you on that, my wife would have to call me out on it for sure.
She's like, no, you wouldn't.
Yeah, no,
you'd
no
still
way.
be doing something. And my wife would probably say the same thing. She's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you do that for a month and then you'd get bored.
Right.
No, that's good. So, and so the day you started with NimbeLink is actually the day that HartSmart Products was officially started.
Yep.
But even that, because I had the opportunity to tour the space and get a little feel, take a couple videos from my son. Thank you for that. He's gonna dig that when I get a chance to show him. But
of course.
Yeah. So there's different parts of that. So, and again, you don't have to give us the blow by blow, but how did things continue to progress once you said, yeah, I'm going forward with this?
Yeah, it sort of escalated from there. So it's hard to summarize, but basically, I as I continue to get more work as a, guy in the basement with a printer, it became clear that I needed to have more materials on hand. So
Sure.
in order to have more materials on hand, but not actually have to, buy all of it, or at least not buy all of it at full retail price, I decided that I would sign on and resell filament so I could get a wholesale price on the material. And then maybe if somebody bought it from me, great, but at least I would have all the colors that I would need for my print job, and get it at a discount. And so then I started carrying a couple different more and started doing more of that. And that was when sort of the second business unit within HartSmart Products started, which is the retail business.
Yeah.
Still operating out of my basement, but actually starting to sell material in addition to just providing a print job service.
Yep.
So that was the two business units we had there for a while. And then as more and more people started getting printers and more people would balk at the price of something that I would say because they could just buy a printer and do it themselves. It's not that easy. Then I started to realize that I really needed to differentiate from everybody else that was out there.
Sure.
And that's when I started looking at the large format printers. And by large format, I mean 2 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet build volume, huge printers, at least at the time.
Right.
And that got me into my first quote unquote industrial 3D printer. And fast forward, that same company that I bought that machine from approached me to be a reseller of their machines.
Okay.
I'm still operating in my basement at this point, by the way. And I said yes. I signed on, and we started selling Modix large format 3D printers out of my basement, and that actually worked.
Cool.
So yeah, that was the third part of the business, and what we currently have as our 3 business units: the services side, the retail side, and then our industrial printer side of things. Of course, things are a little bit different now than they were back then.
Yep.
We have moved into our second facility. So I got the first commercial facility about 2.5 years ago at this point. And then we moved into a much, much larger space, like 8.5 times larger space, just about a little over a year ago.
Okay.
And now we've got 6 employees.
Yeah.
We're keeping busy, doing
Shop
lots
dog.
of stuff. Shop dog. Yeah. More than one shop dog. You met mine, but there are 2 others that run around every once in a while too.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So a few minutes ago, and I was like, hey, we're going to come back to that. The stepping away from the career, because that's a question that I get a lot, you know, because that's a hard one. And a coach that I worked with that was on the show, named Mitch Matthews, he called it a leap number, and his process that he walked people through was, you and your bride have to, or husband or spouse, you significant other, if you share money with someone, as I stumble over myself here, you need to kind of be in agreement with this. Was his take is, what is that number? Like, what is that number that if I produce that working 10% of my time on this, then how exponentially can I grow that if I put 100%? Now that's one way to look at it. But you mentioned, there might be a story there, or if there's not, that's fine. But what did that look like for you? Finally going, hey, I'm letting all this go, and I'm doing this full time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I eased into it.
Okay.
And by that, I mean, I was not the first paid full-time employee of HartSmart Products. I hired an employee to be full-time dedicated to HartSmart Products before I was.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I still had a full-time job while also trying to scale HartSmart Products, and was technically not the first full-time employee I had.
Okay.
Yeah. And mostly that was because I had a wife, I had kids, I had a mortgage, I had car payments, I had all this stuff going on that meant that I couldn't do the whole, living in a, 1-bedroom apartment, eating ramen, that kind of thing that you hear so often.
That ship had sailed a few years ago.
Yeah. I was a little past that point. So unfortunately, that number for me was half of what I used to make, but it still had to be half of what I used to make.
Right.
And that still seemed very, very hard to get to. And it was a momentous occasion when I finally was able to make the plunge and do it.
Yeah. That's great. So how long ago was that?
It was 2 years ago.
Okay.
I forget, 2 to 3, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Well, we had that COVID year in there that just makes everything feel like either,
you can't even count
either
that
2
year.
months or 10 years. That's how long 2020 was.
Yeah. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was 3 years now that you say that, because I have to remember COVID.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. So that, I mean, that's a huge step. But things are going well, and you mentioned scaling, and I'm sure that's still part of the steps moving forward.
It is, yeah. We're in this weird, I call it the awkward adolescence of our growth, where we are moving out of the startup phase, which seems like we've been in a startup phase for a very, very long time. But again, most of that was me in my basement by myself with my printers. So it almost, as a side hustle, it almost didn't count. But we have been in the startup phase for quite some time. Just sort of everything is working out of my head. If I were to, we talk about me getting hit by a bus a lot, which I don't know is maybe a problem, but we talk about it a lot because we need to make sure that as we move into the next stage of our growth, that if I get hit by a bus, the business lives on without me.
Yes.
And that is a big transition
Huge.
to make.
Yep.
It's very necessary, especially at the stage we're at right now, but it is a difficult one to make, a big milestone for the company. So we're working through that right now, and trying to figure out how best to do it. I just graduated from a program put on by Goldman Sachs called the 10,000 Small Businesses Program.
Yes.
And I'm very proud of that. So
absolutely
made sure to mention it, but it is basically like a mini MBA and is teaching me all the things that I didn't learn in school because I didn't plan to start a business and be the CEO of a company and figure out how to grow a business. That was just never in my plans.
Sure.
I was going to be a corporate ladder climber, or actually I was going to be a veterinarian. So, here I am trying to figure it out as I go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I'm glad you said that, because I probably would have forgot, but when I read the bio and the liberal arts studies with a minor in biology, I was going to go, hey, where were you headed with that? But
that
you
was
think
a pretty
that's
direct
cool?
path to 3D printing business owners.
Absolutely. Yes. That's what all 3D printing business owners do.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, I went to Iowa State. I actually moved to Iowa to go to Iowa State from California. And I did so to attend Iowa State because it has a fantastic vet school, and I was going to be a veterinarian.
All right.
So I put, 3.5 years into being, getting my zoology degree as a pre-veterinary student. And it was at that point that I realized, hey, wait a minute. I'm not sure I want to be a veterinarian.
This is not maybe what I want to do.
Yeah. So I decided that I wanted to switch to business. Took a year off so I could get in-state tuition because I was still paying out-of-state tuition as a resident of California, and started doing work actually, in business. And that really kind of taught me a lot about business and allowed me to finish my degree out with night classes, online classes, while also starting my career in business. So, after about 7 years, the college starts to say, hey, maybe we can put together a degree of some kind and get you out of here. So that's why I ended up with a liberal studies degree. But of course, I had a lot of biology, zoology, organic chemistry classes like that all get counted as electives, which is not what I would have picked if I had started over from the beginning. But that's
organic chem is a really tough elective.
Yeah, it's a good one. So so that's the degree. And then, I launched into, again, corporate business and B2B sales for a very large corporation, and thought that that's what I was destined for. I learned again that it's not.
Yeah.
So not a very direct path to what I'm doing right now, but it taught me a lot. And honestly, as much as I talk about, wrong directions and making weird turns and leaving all that experience and everything that I built up behind me when I jumped into doing HartSmart Products, it all plays in.
Absolutely.
It's all beneficial.
Yep.
And it, makes me the business owner that I am right now. I'm certainly not perfect, but I would have been a lot worse off if I had started doing this without all of that experience.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point. And I think sometimes people can get, when if you think you're supposed to be doing something else, you get hung up on, well, gosh, I wasted all this time. And it's like, no, if it feels like it's wasted, go back and find those things, and sometimes they're going to be really obvious. Like, hey, this is what I was supposed to learn during this time. Sometimes they're not, but then, most likely there's going to be something that comes up that you're like, oh, that's what I was supposed to learn from that manager. That's where, a problem comes up at where you're at now. And all of a sudden you're brought back to something that happened when you were at Verizon. You're like, oh, that's what that manager was trying to teach me. I think, I I'm finishing up John Acuff's book Soundtracks, and he has a version that his daughters wrote for, I don't know if you've seen that, but now I'm going to totally blank on the name, but I'm reading that. Reading that with my kids, and those soundtracks that just play over and over in our head. That kind of falls in line with what you're saying. It's like, hey, I learned from that stuff, and I think the more we can draw from our past instead of letting our past drag us down, that's how we catapult forward.
Yeah, I actually read his book Quitter when I was still working for the corporate organization that I was in, and
Sure.
and fantasizing about being able to follow the example that he lays out in that book. And yeah, it's one of those things where hindsight is 2020
Sure.
is one way to think about it. People tell you, if you could go back and talk to your younger self, what would you tell your younger self? And I used to have a good answer for that question, but the truth is, if I were to go back and talk to my younger self would not have listened.
Yep.
So it doesn't really matter what I would have told my younger self, because my younger self was sure that he knew everything and that he had found the career for him, and he wouldn't have listened.
Yeah.
I get lots of things where I wish I would have taken engineering classes. I wish I would have gotten a different degree. I wish I would have gotten, done this, done that, whatever the case may be. But the truth is, I am where I am right now. And if I had gone back and had thought to make a different decision, I probably wouldn't have. And I certainly wouldn't be where I am right now if I had.
Yeah. No, that's really good. So that kind of parlays into a question that I want to ask, and that's, what's been your biggest success so far, and what are you the most proud, or what are you the most proud of?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's gonna maybe not be exactly the answer that you might be looking for, but to me, the whole idea of starting a business and being an entrepreneur was so foreign when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And again, as I was going through college, as I graduated college and had launched into my business career, the whole idea of starting something, building something, creating a company, employing people, being the business owner, all that kind of stuff just was so foreign and so amazing to me. I thought entrepreneurs were amazing and totally unique and nothing like me. And the fact that I have been able to do it, and it takes some perspective to stop, take a step back and really realize that, hey, I did that.
Yeah.
That is something that I don't think enough about, and I don't appreciate enough. But when I do take a second to stop and think about it, I'm very, very proud of that. And I would consider that to be one of the big successes.
I think that's a great answer. And when you said it may not be the one you're hoping for, I'm like, most of the questions I ask, I'm just like, all right, what are they going to say next? So I think that's amazing. And what it made me think of is I think, and this is maybe just what I have in my head, but I think a lot of people think all entrepreneurs are these, type A, or maybe not even type A, but like just super outgoing, and they're just going to go out and meet everybody. But I'll tell you, one of the most fun things about interviewing the people that I have is like, yeah, some of them are, and other people just have a really awesome idea and they're passionate enough to go after it and keep going after it. And I think grit and tenacity and perseverance are a lot more favorable characteristics for an entrepreneur than necessarily outgoingness is, in the experience that I've gained. So I love that that's your answer. I mean, especially hearing you say that's not who I thought I was, and now you are, like, that's awesome. That's absolutely a huge success.
I appreciate that. Yeah. When I was able to officially hire myself full time, that was a big deal. That was the only goal I had for years. It's just to be fully employed, self-employed, by the company. So yeah, I'm proud of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, not to take you from a high and make you talk about a low, but let's go the other
I mean,
angle.
that's the entrepreneurial journey,
Right.
there.
I mean, yeah, you're just peaks and valleys all day, every day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What's been the biggest setback? And hopefully there hasn't been a setback, but if not a setback, what's been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I guess the biggest thing that I would point to for that is that I didn't do it sooner. I
Ah, okay, yeah,
Again, it's maybe not the answer you're looking for, but it's one of these things where I feel like if I had discovered my love of entrepreneurship and started a business sooner, if I had been able to, not have the car payment, the mortgage, everything that I had to deal with, then I could have made that leap sooner.
right,
But again, it goes back to the answer I gave you before. If I had known that sooner, if I had not gone and had the job experiences that I had, and the crushing, soul sucking corporate experience that I went through, then I wouldn't appreciate where I'm at right now.
right.
I wouldn't be where I am right now. So it's sort of a cop out answer, I guess, because that's my answer, but also I don't believe it. So I don't know if
Fair.
that counts.
Yeah, no. I appreciate your candor. I think some of it too is knowing what we don't want, right? I mean, like you mentioned the soul crushing,
Yeah.
corporate environment. I think sometimes we have to experience that to know like that's not what I want. Like, and for some that's the best path, and it's the best path to happiness. But part of the reason that I ask a lot of the same questions is because I have a different person sitting across the table or on Zoom every time I do this. And it's nothing about pursuing your passion is a one size fits all. Nothing. When you start it, when when it turns from a hobby to a part-time job, when you jump in and do it full time, it's all different. I mean, if you figure something, I mean, yeah, again, I mean, I don't want to contradict what you said because you're right. Everything you took in your years of working in the corporate America made you what you are. But if you came up with this idea at 24 without all the debt, you could have gone right away. Now, it probably wouldn't have turned into what it is now, but like, and I'm kind of rambling now, but my point being like, it's not a one size fits all answer. For some people, it does work to jump right away. For some people, even in their 30s or 40s, it does work to jump right away because they don't have a car payment and they don't have a mortgage. So I think I just love getting the different perspectives from different people. And because I think that's great for anybody listening to this show. Like, okay, I grab on more to this person or I grab on more to that person. So no, I appreciate that insight a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think back to when I was still in college and thinking about what I was going to do. I worked at a retail store. Anybody remember Radio Shack?
I
And
do.
right on, right on. So yeah, I was sure that I could manage that retail store, that I could, kill the numbers, that I can manage a team. Looking back, I didn't have a clue. I mean, I did not have a clue. So if I had jumped in and started a business at that point, it would have been a dismal failure. So
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I was just telling somebody the other day that I think I probably could have figured it out had we had children earlier, but I'm like, I'm glad we waited longer than a lot of people do because I was so selfish in my 20s.
Right.
I don't think I'd have been good at raising kids, and I don't think I'd have been good at managing people because
Yeah.
I'd have just been thinking about me all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not a knock on you. That's common. That's,
Right.
Human nature.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll say that in my older years and the wisdom that I have gained has made me a more successful person, maybe a better manager. We'll never know the opposite, so
Right.
we'll go with it.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's a dream or a goal that you haven't reached yet? Like what's still out there that you're
Oh, man.
gunning for?
Yeah, that's a tricky one too, because as a business owner, you never really feel like you reach your goals.
Mm-hmm.
You just know that there are always more of them out there
Sure.
that you haven't reached yet. So, the goals are always moving. Again, my biggest goal for the longest time was to hire myself,
Yeah.
to be fully employed by HartSmart Products. And once I reached that, I honestly had a moment of like, now what?
Now what? Yeah. Sure. Sure.
And there's lots of now what. There's lots of goals to hit and things to do. But man, at this point, my answer is kind of boring. It's that the company is able to get big enough and have enough team members and be distributed enough, not reliant upon me whatsoever. So if I choose to go on a week long, or in the clockwork mentality, a 4 week long vacation, that the business continues to operate or even benefit from my absence.
Yeah.
That would be a big deal right
Sure.
there, being able to do something like that. So maybe that's my next goal. I haven't cemented that as an official goal, but that would be a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
very cool. So I want to go back a few years, or quite a few. You mentioned you went to Iowa State to be a vet, but I always like to ask people, like, tell me about your dreams when you were a kid, or tell me about what 7 or 10-year-old you wanted to be.
Yeah. So I actually have a little perspective on this, because my mother is one of those parents who would always break out the cassette tape recorder
Okay.
on the very first day of school and on the very last day of school, and would ask us these questions.
That is awesome.
So I actually have an audio record. By the way, my younger self was incredibly annoying. I cannot stand to listen to that kid. But yeah, so he had some ideas of what he was going to be. Honestly, pretty early on, veterinarian.
Yeah, it was there.
It was
Yeah,
there. I
that's
wanted
cool.
to be a veterinarian. I had other things like, kids always dream of being, at one point, like when I was really young, I wanted to be a clown when I grew up.
Sure. Yeah.
Then I became more sophisticated, and instead I wanted to be a comedian when I grew up.
I'm taking the makeup off, Mom.
Yeah.
But I still want to make people
Yeah,
laugh.
I'm more serious than that. But yeah, so then, pretty much right after that, it was like, well, I want to be a veterinarian.
Cool.
It was one of these things where I grew up in a household. My dad's a doctor, and was fairly high ranking in the Navy. Retired as an admiral, and so there's these expectations that you're gonna have a big career.
Sure.
You're gonna do big things. You have to go to college. You
Yep.
have to get a degree that requires more than just the bachelor's degree. You're going to get a professional career.
Sure.
And so again, I go back to this idea, like entrepreneurship was not on my radar at all. But growing up, I just knew that I had to do something that required more than just a 4-year degree.
Okay.
Like it was just, that was the expectation.
Yeah.
And so veterinarian was one of those where it's not people, because I'm an extreme introvert. I play one in business. I play an extrovert, but that's not really me. So I knew I didn't really want to deal with people as much, but I loved animals. And so veterinarian seemed like a natural choice. It sort of checked all the boxes.
Sure.
Every time they would give us one of those career quizzes or whatever, I'd always answer the question so that the answer always came out as, you should be a veterinarian. It's like, see, there we go.
I knew it. I knew it. That's funny. So, and part of the reason that I asked that question too is my daughter for about 3 years now, at least, maybe even 4, has been saying veterinarian.
Yeah.
And so, and she does well in school, you know, and she seems like, she learns well. Cause I mean, it's a lot of school, and it is
a lot of school.
Pretty much, I mean, it's an animal doctor. Like I was going to say, it's pretty much doctor. It is an animal doctor.
It is an animal doctor. Yeah.
That's one of those that I'm like, I want to encourage, because she seems focused on it, but who knows, maybe she'll,
you never know. Yeah.
she'll go down some very different path from veterinarian, just like you did.
Yeah. Just leave it open for her. I mean, that's the big thing for me is there was never a question.
Yeah.
It was just, this is what's going to happen. You are going to go to college. You're going to get a degree. You're going to, go into vet school, med school, law school, whatever other type of school after college.
Sure.
And then you're going to graduate and you're going to make lots of money and, have a wife and kids and a dog and a cat and, live in the suburbs, etc. And a lot of that's true, actually. A lot of that did end up
funny
happening.
How it's the prophecy was foretold.
Yeah. But these other ideas were just never even considerations. I don't know that I needed to go to college at all.
Yeah.
Certainly not for what I'm doing right now.
Right.
But, it certainly was something that helped inform who I am and that sort of thing. But I don't use my degree. It's not like one of those things. And I think these days, when I'm hiring, I'm not looking for a college degree of any kind. We're hiring people to do some engineering type of work.
Right.
And I'm not looking for engineering degrees.
Yeah.
I want somebody who's got, the right type of attitude, the right type of capabilities, the skills. I can teach most of the other stuff.
Yep.
But I just need somebody who's got the soft skills
Mm-hmm.
that are going to make them a good fit for the company and, offer the customers and everything that we have the right type of interface, the right type of, I don't know, it's almost hard to describe, but I'm looking for the person, not necessarily the degree.
I hope more companies will start doing that. And obviously as a small business, you're a little more nimble and have the ability to do that. But I mean, even bigger companies could implement that. I remember when I was and this is not a knock. I had a great experience working as a financial advisor partnered with Principal, but I remember when you apply for life insurance or disability insurance, there's a person that calls and does a tele app with you.
Yeah.
Tele app. They were requiring a college degree for that. Because they could,
yeah.
There were so many people that needed job, and I'm like, you don't need a college degree to ask these questions,
right.
And a college degree doesn't make you good at that job or any other job necessarily. It may, but that, and so I go back and forth on that as well. And I love that you said it informed who I am, because I'm not one that's going to say, hey, I could have done without college. I could do what I do now without college, but would I have been who I don't think I am who I am at 44 if I'm not who I was at 35, and that informed who I was at 25, which informed,
Couldn't agree more.
I love that answer. It's like, but I think more parents our age hopefully are on the bandwagon of college isn't necessary to have a successful life. Because if your kid's struggling in school, there's really no reason for him or her to go get $50,000 worth of student debt.
Yeah.
To go do a job that doesn't require that. I think we're on the same page there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to your point, I'm not at the end of college. I was nowhere near the same person that I was at the end of high school.
Exactly.
I learned a lot about myself in college.
Totally agree.
And that was, an experience I would not trade for $1 million. Do I need the degree? No, not really.
Yep.
But that was an experience.
There's a lot of experience in those years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's the message there, folks.
There you go. Yeah. That's your one takeaway.
Right. So what would you say to somebody who is struggling to find their passion, or if you feel like you've got better insight, somebody that's struggling to get their passion project off the ground?
Yeah. Well, man, I feel like it's so different for so many different people.
It absolutely is.
And this is one of those things where, if I'm just purely basing it on my experience and how I went about it, I was one of those kids in college where, as I got toward the end of my degree, I was literally panicking about, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. After I wanted to be a veterinarian for so long that when I decided I didn't want to be a veterinarian, I thought, well,
now what?
I don't know what that I do want to do then. Business is so generic. That's not a career. That's not a job.
Yeah.
So I took all the tests and they would always, it was so frustrating that all the personality tests, the career tests, everything that they give you, I would come out with an almost perfect distribution in every quadrant to where, across every letter. So they were not helpful at all.
I'm going to be
And
totally mediocre at everything.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I stumbled around a long time. You sort of heard it in the progression of my career.
Sure.
I thought I was going to do the corporate thing. Then I thought I was going to be in technology. Then I thought I wanted to, pursue electronics. I actually went back to an online school for a short period of time to get an electrical engineering degree, because I thought that was where my passion was. And after a few courses, I determined that's not where my passion is. And, it was just sort of this thing where I just bounced around and followed things for a while. And eventually my hobby took over.
Sure.
It was not intended to do that, but
yeah,
it took over.
Right.
And here I am, and I love what I do.
Yeah. I think that's great. Well, and I think that is probably one of the, I mean, you didn't say these words exactly, so I might be putting words in your mouth a little bit, but like the resounding theme in talking with people is like, don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
Like stay open, keep your eyes open, and that thing that's going to fire you up is going to come to you.
Yeah. I mean, as a parent, as a father, I always want to ask the question of my kids, like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't want to ask that question.
That's fair.
I don't want to put that in their heads, but I'm still, the curiosity takes over. So I do in fact ask that question.
Right. It's interesting that you say that, because while I encourage the idea of the veterinarian, I'll be like, have you, what else are you thinking about?
Right.
Cause I want her to not just get set on,
Yeah.
and it's great having this conversation with you today, but I don't want you to just think that's the only way that dad thinks you're going to be successful. Like, what else are you excited about?
Yeah, no, I was totally dead set on being
Sure.
a veterinarian. Anybody who told me that I needed a backup plan was wrong.
Sure.
Flat out. And, and it was because I made up my mind early on that that's what I was going to be. And I just decided that I was going to do everything possible to make it so that every career test I ever took, every advisor I ever had would always agree with me and tell me that, yes, in fact, I should be a veterinarian. Turns out I should not have been a veterinarian. And, if I could avoid sending my kids down that same path of getting, their blinders on and knowing that that's the one thing they're going to do, I'm going to try to help them avoid that. But it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, for sure. So to switch gears a little bit, but do you read? Well, you mentioned ACAF. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is this question I always stumble over, because everybody's like, 3 books. How do I answer that?
Yeah.
I will give you the option of, 3 favorite books or 3 favorite books right now. Because sometimes 3 favorite books of all time is just a little too daunting.
Yeah. It is a difficult question because I also have one of those memories where I can remember concepts, like I can remember the content of the book, but trying to remember
what the title is and the author. Yeah.
Yeah. But there is one that stands out from I don't know, I guess college or high school, which is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one has always stuck with me. I just love that game. The game. I love that book.
Yeah.
Please do not go see the movie. It is awful. In my humble opinion.
I don't think I have.
Yeah. But yeah, the book is just fantastic. And so I always come back to that one.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm really right now specifically following the Clockwork book.
Okay.
And the whole concept of Clockwork. And this is a business focused book rather than, Ender's Game, which is just sort of for fun.
Yep.
And, I'm heading down that path pretty hard with my business. So I'd have to answer as that one would be one of my 3.
Sure.
And, beyond that is hard.
Okay. 2 is fine.
Yeah.
I shouldn't put a number on it. I just feel like, because sometimes I say 3 and then, people give me 4 or 5. So
sure.
2 is
honestly, if I had time to look back at all my reading list, I'd probably pick out 10.
Yeah.
But, on the spot, it's hard to think about that.
And I love that you said Ender's Game, because I haven't thought about that book for a while. Now I'm like, okay, see, my kids still have us read to them before bed, which
Uh-huh.
I was talking with a dad this morning, and I'm like, because Ian, my son, was like, how long will you put me to bed? I'm like, dude, I will read to you when you're a senior in high school if
Yeah.
you let me.
Yeah.
Like, like
Until you tell me no.
this is not on me. This is
Yeah.
on you. But I immediately, as soon as you said that book, I was like, oh, I got to check that out, because I remember that book as well. So
Yeah. Big sci-fi nerd, and
Yep.
that one's one of the best.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Author
That's a good
turns
one.
out not to be an awesome guy, but
Yeah.
the story's great.
Right. Yes. He still wrote a great
Yes.
story. That's the important part.
Right.
So, and if you check it out from the library, you're not putting any money in his pocket if you're
There you go.
opposed to
There you
his
go.
antics. So
Yeah, I will add. So I was recently introduced to the whole world of Brandon Sanderson, and so I've been really sort of consuming everything that Brandon Sanderson has written, and that's been pretty fun as well.
I don't know him. So
Yeah,
I'll have
it's
to
more
check it out.
fantasy than
Okay.
than sci-fi. But when I just really need a brain break, I don't. I should say I don't physically read paper anymore.
Audio.
I can't sit down and focus.
Sure.
I really just cannot. So everything is generally audiobook.
Yeah.
Either when I'm doing, yard work or something around the house and I've got headphones on, or I'm driving back and forth to work.
Yep.
That's when I get to read.
Same.
Yeah.
I'd love to. I've said that several times. I want to read, but it's hard to find the time to do it. Brandon, I really appreciate having you on the show. It's been so fun to learn more about what you do. But for me, the 3D printing is like that's something I'm intrigued by. But I've loved hearing about your process. I think for the listeners, hearing somebody that a hobby again turned into a paid hobby, turned into a side hustle, turned into a business. Those are the stories that I love. So thank you for sharing the time with us. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Absolutely. I appreciate this. This has been a blast.
Awesome.
It's fun to talk it through.
Yeah, for sure. So if listeners want to learn more about Brandon, if they want to learn more about HartSmart Products, what's the best way to connect with you? Website, socials, all the above?
Yeah. So I'm not personally very active on social media. I'm not a big social media guy, but we do have a presence on social media. So please, follow, what is it? EcoStruder, which is my nickname. I actually had a YouTube channel that I started before HartSmart Products officially had started. So it still is out there as EcoStruder channel. I'm still doing new videos and new content for that.
Cool.
So subscribe on YouTube to EcoStruder. I think I got that right.
Okay.
Eco-friendly 3D printing YouTube channel. We do also have a HartSmart Products YouTube channel, but there's not much content on there, to be honest, because EcoStruder is more fun.
Cool.
And so other than that, HartSmartProducts.com. And, you can find a contact request form if you want something printed, or if you're interested in some printers, supplies, parts, whatever. We're happy to help you out.
Great. Awesome. Brandon, thank you again. To all the listeners, thank you. I hope this has been an inspiring time. Brandon's got some great insight for us. So thank you for being along on the journey, and keep pursuing your passions.
If you have questions or would like to contact us, please check out the show details for contact information. Thanks for listening to the Pursue Your Passion podcast.